What is going on, everyone? We are back with another episode of the Misfit podcast. It's just Sherb and Hunty today.
Oh, you just said that sadly, like it's only just us. Drew's
No,
off
that's
gallivanting in the woods somewhere.
Drew is somewhere in California.
In 40 feet of snow.
In 40 feet of snow, fucking idiot. He was like, I just saw the post on Instagram and he's just like, California weather, just trolling on him. He left Maine. It snowed like an inch, maybe like an inch or two in Maine cumulatively, and he's
at most,
and he's out in California, and he just got fucking dumped on in his vacation road trip.
Yeah, before he left, I asked him. I said, "Hey, I know you're leaving next week, but like, where the hell are you going?" He's like, "Oh, we're going out west. We're going to fly into Vegas," and then we had the goal of going to Yosemite and Yellowstone. He's like, "There's this just small chance though, if we go on this one single road and there's bad snow, then I might not come back for a couple months." And I was just like, couple months? He's like, yeah, you can easily get snowed in for a week or two out there. So that one route sounds like if you manage to make it across the route, but then it gets closed due to weather, you have to drive like 8 or 9 hours around to get back to basically what you could almost see across the street from, because there's no other way to get around. Yikes. So he's like, let's hope that it doesn't happen, but looks like it has.
Unclear. What an idiot. All right. Anyway, you know what that means? That means it's Coach's podcast time. So we are going to talk two topics. We're going to start talking about phase 4. So for affiliates out there, or just listeners in general, the affiliate programming follows the same schedule generally as Misfit Athletics. So if you're listening to this, you're probably familiar with Misfit Athletics, hopefully. If not, welcome to the show. And 2, the affiliate programming follows the same schedule as Misfit Athletics. So we try to line up a lot of the kind of foci for the phase, the lifting, the skill, the gymnastics, and it works out some of the time. And
there's some things that work pretty well because they're excellent and perfectly appropriate for affiliates. And there are other things that the sports side of it maybe doesn't necessarily fit perfectly with the alignment of what the goal of an affiliate is, which is that GPP.
Yeah. And a great example, easy example is we've talked a little bit about it on previous podcasts, but the volume squat phase for Misfit Athletics, the individual version, is coming back. And that's 3 pretty demanding squat days a week. And like you were saying, that's not necessary. Not to say that there's not a place, and nor that we might never do like a really rugged squat cycle for affiliates. I think that might be a fun thing to do once in a blue moon. But in general, we don't need athletes back squatting heavy 3 days a week. So we are going to focus on back squatting in phase 4, but it's going to be balanced out with some of the other things to kind of keep the program as well-rounded as we want it.
You might be wondering like why couldn't you do that? And you're right. In theory, we could definitely put a volume squat cycle where you squat 2 to 3 days a week in class, but you have to remember the amount of touch points you get with these folks every single week. Some members only come to the gym 2 or 3 days, and if they only squat those 3 days somehow for 7 weeks, it's a lot of fitness being left on the table. So while that's still a very admirable thing to try to do to develop this really awesome back squat, we have to look at it from a big picture perspective. We want people to be generally fit at the affiliate. So yes, you might have athletes who are at your, at your gym knocking down the door being like, hey, how come we're not doing the volume cycle at the affiliate? And that's because we, value well-roundedness across all domains and capacities rather than just kind of focusing on one single thing, which could be the trap that people could fall into if they only manage to hit those squat days for a whole phase.
For sure. And there's a level of like consistency there. There's like let's say we were to put that volume squat phase in class. Well, you can expect that the only thing in class would be that squatting because of how difficult it is. So like you said, athlete only comes 2 or 3 times a week, and two out of those 3 times is back squatting. Well, we might not be giving them, or they might not be getting what they're hoping for out of the program.
Absolutely.
So again, not to say that there's not a place for it or that we would never do that, but this coming phase, we're not. So we're going to talk a little bit about phase 4 for the affiliate stuff, but I would say the meat and the potatoes of the podcast, we got a good topic that we're going to cover. Maybe not when, because this is not, at least from my end, because I'm not the businessman certainly not of this conversation, but, within the Misfit hierarchy, the business side of things is not something that I necessarily like am directly involved in. It's more kind of having a conversation about when and how and why you might raise your membership rates at the gym. The new year is like kind of seems like a pretty standard time to do something like that. And we're going to talk a little bit about it because it is something that we've announced to our gyms that is happening. And we're just going to kind of give our thoughts on it.
Yeah, some anecdotal evidence and the experiential things that we've had over having done this. We've had Misfit HQ, Misfit Gym Portland has been a affiliate since 2009, and our secondary location's been in action since 2014. So, over a long enough span, if you don't continually raise your rates or increase, what you're offering to your members, it's really hard for your business to survive. So, some of these things are out of necessity, but they're also, tips and tricks to help make that go smoother, because there are, a little bit of anxiety from an affiliate owner's side, because, I am one. I know what it feels like when I come up with the idea of like, hey, we should potentially do this, but like, are we going to lose so many members that cool, we have higher rates, but no members, like where's the benefit there? So we're going to talk a little bit more about that kind of after we, dive through phase 4 kind of quickly.
Right. Let's talk phase 4. So phase 4 for the affiliates are going to start on January 3rd, right? January 3rd, that's going to go right up until the first week of the open. So like the end of the phase, like that next Monday is 22.1. Like, holy shit. So our focus, kind of the focus and the theme for phase 4 for the affiliates is going to be the open, given that most of our followers are, or not most of our followers, most of the gyms that follow the programming, the open is kind of that benchmark that
Super Bowl.
It's our Super Bowl. The open is kind of what we structure most of the programming year around. So the other, what would it be, 49 weeks of the year, we're kind of building up to the open, and that's just to have kind of that, you got to be training for something. You got to have some sort of goal in mind. So, and the open is as good of a benchmark as any. So we want to have our affiliate athletes have the best chance for success when, if we're convincing them that, hey, the goal is consistency and fitness and increasing your fitness a little bit over, your lifetime. We have the test and retest weeks in our programming, but there's always something about the open that's difficult to replicate, kind of without the community, the gigantic entire CrossFit community rallying around the open.
There's just so much benefit to being excited about the open as an affiliate owner and as an affiliate member. And, coaches should be kind of echoing that message to their communities, because you have this ability to compare with every other person on earth that does CrossFit, which creates this awesome commonality. And, humans are tribal, so they want to be part of something. So at the big picture, you get to have this, we are part of the CrossFit collective community, and you get to participate in something that, your sport heroes participate in. You have your Frasers, your Tias, all those people. So that's really cool. And then second of all, one thing that we really like in our program is proof of concept. If we're going to say that, hey, we can make you stronger, or we can get you better on a rower, or we'll figure out how to get your wall ball sets bigger, we need to have something to benchmark that, a period where we train it, and a chance to retest that to prove to athletes and prove to our communities that yes, we aren't just saying one thing and delivering another, but you actually have physical data to say, I've gotten better here. So between the community aspect of the open, the tribalness of being part of a bigger group of people, and then being able to prove to athletes that they've gotten better, because you can see your ranking last year, you were 29,546, and this year you're 18,000, you've made an 11,000 place jump. That is a clear indication that you've gotten significantly fitter. And again, it provides us as affiliate owners concrete evidence that, hey, if you come in here, you work hard, here's the kind of leap you'll have. And while your members not be super stoked about coming in 11,000th place, they're going to recognize that when it's easier to take the stairs or carry their groceries or play with their grandkids. Like, as important as it is to have that like metric as another proof of concept that we're getting better, it's a nice way to tie those two things together, saying if you train for the open year round, yes, you're going to do better in the open, but you're going to notice that other things in your life become easier. And that to me is like the gold in affiliate class, is finding those wins kind of outside the gym.
Yeah. And it's just like, what's the difference between just going to a commercial gym and kind of doing the same, 3 sets of 10 at the same weight every time, versus coming to a CrossFit gym and never having something to kind of like look back on. That's the advantage to doing CrossFit, is that the whole observable, measurable, repeatable thing, it allows people to see objectively, not subjectively, their increase in fitness. So yeah, absolutely. And that's for the general population, 90% of your members, like that's what we're after. The open, giving them a chance to challenge themselves, but hopefully, bring forth the best fit version of themselves to the open. And then there's the other kind of 10% of folks, and it wouldn't be Misfit athletics or Misfit programming without, considering the athletes who want a little bit more, those quarterfinal hopefuls, or those, athletes at your gym who have an athletic background and, they can do the open and they're going to be in that top 10%, not without trying, but they're probably going to progress to quarterfinals. And it's like, well, that's their Super Bowl. The or the competitor extra is going to gear a little bit more towards prepping those athletes for quarterfinals, whether that's some beefier metcons, incorporating some of the different kind of implements that we've seen now in this past quarterfinals, and just, what we can reasonably see in competition. We want to get those athletes ready to roll as well.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of like an oh shit factor when the quarterfinal workouts dropped last year. Like, you're going to have me do how many pistols, how many GHDs, how many rope climbs.
Right.
The barbell for the snatch is 185. We've probably not seen anything heavier than like, honestly, 95 for consistent reps over and over again. Yeah, there've been ladders before, but like last year was our first, peek behind the curtain of what a quarterfinal is going to be like. And, I wouldn't say that like we were ill prepared, but I think it stepped up the game another level. So we, as students of the game, looked back and said, all right, what's a reasonable ask for these athletes? Let's look at historical CrossFit events. Let's look at last year's quarterfinal events and go, all right, what could this athlete potentially be thrown against? And let's make sure if we have those athletes in our facilities that we prepare them as well, because there are those folks, and honestly, those higher tier folks that do the quarterfinals or maybe even get a chance to go to semifinals become beacons of hope or people who inspire other people at your gym. So while it might feel like they're a very small sector of your community, you might underestimate how much influence they have over the community as a whole. So we need to make sure we're providing for those folks as well, which is why, we have a very specific piece each week that is geared with the quarterfinals in mind to make sure those athletes aren't going to the quarterfinals and being like, I haven't snatched that much weight for that many reps recently.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's actually in maybe there's a quick side tangent, but like, hopefully you have that spread of athlete that we were just talking about. You have the athlete who is going to do the open and say like, oh, I don't really care that I'm 11,000th in the open, but getting up the stairs is easier. Getting carrying the dog food into the house is a lot easier. Like, if you have that person in your gym and the person who's like, yeah, like, let's fucking go 185, 125 snatches in quarterfinals, like, if you have both of those athletes in your gym, like, you're doing something right enough that it's like, wow, that's a really wide spread. And we see that because sometimes we have, just by the nature of being Misfit Gym Portland, CrossFit MMF, and like Misfit Athletics HQ, we get a lot of athletes who come from other gyms in the area and are just like, I needed something harder, or I wanted to get fitter and I felt like I'm, either plateauing or something like that. And that is, I've never dug into like what they were doing before. And I would say that, you can work pretty hard and get pretty fit on a lot of different programs, but we get that spread of athletes. And part of the reason our programming is so varied and we don't shy away from those high skill movements like you see a lot of other programs do. It's like, well, we not only do we have the spread of athletes, the extreme end of these athletes who are capable of quarterfinals like workouts, but we also have the coaching that enables them to be like, oh, okay, I can see a high skill workout of squat snatches, muscle ups, and burpees, and I can make it appropriate for the, hey, I just want it to be easier to carry my dog food into the house sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that scope requires a tremendous skill set. And something I'm very proud of with our two affiliates is that we have athletes on both ends of that spectrum. Yeah. Someone that's like trying to get off diabetes medication is looking to lose 50 pounds so they, can get off that medication. And then we have the likes of Austin and Caroline who take affiliate class from time to time and like show athletes what it is to be at the top of the sport.
Yeah.
So to me, it's something I'm very proud of. And it does speak a lot to you as as owners that you have the right people in place that they can deliver a message to the fittest of the fit and the people who are just coming through the door for the first time, as well as being able to offer that to those athletes who are, want to come to you and be like, all right, is this the gym for me? And there are honestly some facilities that tend to skew towards one community or another, which is, nothing wrong with that. But then you ask yourself, am I missing out on being able to help more people or missing out on potential revenue because I only treat this type of client? Now,
Right.
you might decide that's your model, but I'm proud of the fact that we have a great expanse here and we have coaches that can help any span of those athletes. And I think that's something, a good affiliate should strive for, because again, it's this old cross is saying that you program for the best and scale for the rest.
Yeah.
We need to be able to deliver a class regardless of their fitness level at an intensity that is appropriate for them, because that is how we get that individual fit and how they end up bringing their family members and their friends into the gym and continue to build our robust communities. Because at the end of the day, that to me is what I look at as our mission, is how many people can I make healthier in my community here? And if I have the fittest of the fit, well, I'm happy that they're doing that, but I want to provide for them. But I want to show everyone what's possible regardless of where you are in your current, health and fitness journey.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's hit kind of the high points of phase 4, and then we'll roll into our maybe primary topic for the day. But so as mentioned, phase 4, our high CNS lift, our high central nervous system lift, we get one of those per phase. And it's typically like that once per week, you're going to focus on that lift, and that's all you're going to do in that 60-minute class. You'll still have, the extra piece or maybe some optional accessory stuff for folks who want to stick around a little beyond that hour. But in general, this phase, you're going to have a back squat day. We've kind of learned over the years that folks, yes, we focus heavily on conditioning leading into the open, and rightfully so, but a lot of times athletes don't feel as confident or comfortable when that heavy barbell comes out. And I think doing the back squat phase, kind of leading into the open, I don't think there's plenty of conditioning. Like, don't worry. Like you want conditioning, come to Misfit Athletics or Affiliate Programming. But we're going to hit basically what's known as the Texas method. So 5 sets of 5 at the end of phase 3. So a week from when you're listening to this, I think, if my math is right, your affiliate will hit a 5 rep max back squat and that'll be during retest week for this current phase 3. And then week 1 of phase 4 will be right into it with a 5x5. And that weight is just going to increase a little bit every single time, every single week for those 6 weeks. And basically we'll head into week 7 and athletes will hopefully have a heavier 5 rep max. It's a slightly modified version of the Texas
I'm going to put you on the spot real quick.
Yeah.
Question. I am not a Team Misfit affiliate right now. I plan on signing up for phase 4. What do I do now? How do I adjust my schedule to make sure that my teammates are ready?
Let's say you sign up and you start with week 1 and you find that, oh shit, week 1 is 5 sets of 5 at X percentage. I think that's pretty easy. You can either choose if you're whatever program you were on before, athletes have a reasonably good idea of a 5 rep max, then I don't think they necessarily need to test it. But if it's been a while, maybe even if you've done like a 1 rep max recently, that could work and you might use a different percentage of that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with just swapping out that first 5x5 day. Say, hey, you're going to build up to a 5 rep max, and then you're going to strip it down and hit 3 sets of 5 at like 70%, just so athletes aren't completely missing that first week of volume work of 5 sets of 5, because that's a pretty demanding day. But I think you would be safe either way. If you have athletes who have a good idea of a 5 rep max, use that number and go, jump right in, or, use that first week instead of the written percentage work. You find a 5 rep max, and then you give athletes 2 or 3 sets of 5 to get a little bit of volume under their belt.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you haven't sort of alluded to this yet, but these 5x5s get very, very heavy, a very high percentage of your 5 rep max. So I'd also argue it's not a bad idea that if you need to adjust the schedule by a week, athletes going into week 6 of this phase are going to be like, you're going to want me to do 5x5 at what percentage?
Yeah.
You might be able to get away with skipping that day to move the schedule 1 week ahead. So that maybe your first week is the 5 rep max.
Basically, whatever do you remember what the percentage starts at?
85, I believe.
85?
Yeah, I believe it's
80 or 85, whatever it is. So
85.
Basically, you could just start a little bit lower, or, you just understand that it's going to increase by 2.5% every week. And like athletes are still going to get stronger if they're hitting that lift, once a week. So that's our back squat, or that's our high CNS lift for the day, or for the phase. And again, once per week, that's all that's going to be in that class. So plenty of time warming up, activating, mobilizing, that sort of thing. And then you're going to want to allow athletes, I'd say 30 minutes just to be safe. Your heaviest athletes might need even a touch longer, but I think like every 5 minutes for 25 minutes would be
pretty reasonable.
A set of 5, and then you rest for about 4.5 minutes should be plenty. But give athletes plenty of time. Like you said, it gets pretty heavy, and it's a demanding fucking
very hard session. So skill lift for the phase is going to be the split jerk. You'll notice that we aren't going to be testing the split jerk ahead of the skill work for the lift, again, which is the split jerk. And that is because so much of that lift depends on technique, that rather than setting the bar with some bad form in week 1, get it over your head by any means. If your feet sort of split, good job, we're calling it a split jerk. We'd rather start off on the right foot here with some technique. Now, coaches, you're going to see notes each week on things that I've highlighted and Hunter has highlighted as things that we are looking for with the coach focus, something you'll see in your TMF document. And that is hopefully to give you an eyes on one specific part of the lift, so that each week you can kind of systematically check off things that could go awry in a split jerk and have athletes really focus on that. And one way that we've been doing this is we've been setting clocks for, 15, 18 minutes and saying, rather than like a 7x2, here is the lift that you're going to be doing, and it's typically some sort of segmented complex to kind of focus on one part of the lift. Let's hit that, and then athletes can determine based upon their familiarity and comfort with how soon they go. Again, there aren't necessarily sets and reps, but the idea here is that through repetition and through lots of, clock and hours, that we're going to fix things like pushing the knees out and getting athletes to dip vertically. And some things that really stand out to us as coaches as like really big reasons why the split jerk doesn't go successfully or feels really inconsistent. Our goal for the phase is to help athletes feel more consistent with that, because, the open tests things like clean and jerks. It tests heavy snatches, and we don't want an athlete to feel really proud of their clean work they put in all year, and then, you got to go overhead and you can't. So again, we want to make sure athletes really dial that skill work in. When you see a skill lift in any phase, think technique over weight, but allow athletes to go heavy if things are looking good.
Yeah, I would say that over the last few months, really, we've been having some variation of the snatching as the skill lift. And I was talking to Mark the other day, like the other week, really. He was on our podcast last, and we were kind of joking about how it's like, it's kind of become boring to teach the snatch work. and we've been doing it pretty consistently for a couple months. So like, coaches get a little bit of movement fatigue as well, as far as watching the same thing. But it was more because like, man, now I need to like, an athlete who, by and large is a very just kind of average athlete, average Joe person, not necessarily looking to be competitive, but they're snatching really well. And it's like, fuck, I have to like give this, what I would consider a very average athlete, kind of an advanced cue to fix something like that's pretty small relative to the issues that we were having before. So to tie that into the split jerk, I would say with the skill lift, that is like your one chance, not your one chance, but additional focus should be placed on the coach to really hammer the movement and doing it correctly.
Yeah, the fundamentals are really important.
Because that's what I think led us to the success that we're having with athletes improving their snatching, is that coaches were just fucking relentless on people about like, nope, go slower. Nope, do it again. Nope, go lighter. Nope, strip some weight off. And now it's actually paying off. So with these skill lifts, like, don't hesitate to tell people to take some weight off the bar, teach them how to move well. And then when they PR, you can give them a little wink.
You're
and be like,
planting the seed,
so.
and you're spending the next 7 weeks watering that seed with the hope of like growing the tree that you're looking for there. And if you try to skip a step, or you try to go ahead, or you don't take the diligence that you need to really refine things, you're going to have a community that's like, we slowed down for a bunch of time and I don't feel like I got much better here. So like, really want to emphasize the skill focus in that. Do not allow athletes to take 2 steps ahead if they're ready for only 1.
Yep. Gymnastics. So everybody's favorite, well, I don't know, maybe everybody's favorite. I like gymnastics.
Some people like them.
Some people like gymnastics. We're going to alternate between focusing on muscle ups and handstand walking. So open coming up, Everybody thinks like, oh, am I going to get my first muscle up? Am I going to finally handstand walk? Might apply to other movements as well. But those are two really big movements that we find that can be a separator for athletes as far as like, yes, where they fall on the scoreboard, but like you go from 0 muscle ups to 1 muscle up or
Huge.
2 muscle ups. That's really important. That's really big for an athlete and their overall progress. So, once a week, we're going to focus on either muscle ups or handstand walk. We try to put that in the conditioning work as well. So there's going to be a chance for athletes who don't have them yet to work on them in a skill session before the Metcon. And then for athletes who do have those movements in kind of with reasonable capacity, they can express that in the Metcon that follows. And then for your athletes who just, it's not there quite yet, we obviously have some scaling options so they get the right stimulus, but aren't, just kind of flopping around, trying to flop around on rings or something like that for 20 minutes, whatever.
I'd say a little quick PSA here is that for years and years, everyone assumed the muscle ups would be at the end of the workout. So you get to play along with your fitness until the advanced athletes got the muscle ups, everyone stopped. But there was only like a minute left, so who cares? I got my workout in. And then they had that one year where it started with 7 muscle ups and everyone's like, what the fuck? I can't do muscle ups. How can I do this?
Yeah.
Because a lot of places would shy away from these movements being higher skill and being something that, only a small part of your population can get done. You best believe that's going to at some point happen with the handstand walk, where that leads the entire workout. And then if you can't do a handstand walk, you're immediately in the scaled category. You're going to have a bunch of RX athletes who may have been skipping all the handstand skill work and are like, I don't feel like a scaled athlete. And you have to remind them that these skills will eventually show up first. Thinking about our affiliate class that we went through yesterday, which was toes to bar, single arm hang clean and jerk, and handstand walks in very short doses. I'm like, it's very reasonable to think this could be an open workout where you just did 20 minutes straight of what feel like really easy movements, and people who want to transition and who have sustainability in their skills are the ones that get to play longer and get better scores.
Right.
So to me, though there are going to be gyms who are like, you know what, I'm still kind of in that general GPP, and it's nice that we try it every once in a while, but maybe not pour a lot of effort in that. You might be allowing your athletes to separate themselves and, again, build up that self-esteem that their coach cares about their skills, because there are going to be members at your gym who really do care about getting every single skill done. And it's on us to make sure that we can provide that, that knowledge and that practice in a way that allows them to participate so that we can have, again, those icons that the majority of your population look to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. Not to like get off on too many tangents, but I had one of my remote athletes who's moved gyms. He's a lot more like, I would say, like a competitor. He is just like at a different gym now, but he was asking me about like what we do with our coaches as far as like pay and stuff like that. And then he was like, oh, I think it's really cool that you guys program things like, he actually specifically said muscle ups and handstand walking at the affiliate level. And I was like, yeah, like, why wouldn't you? And I know the answer to that. I know why gyms avoid it, but like, to me, and in our opinion, that's just like, if you're not programming that, and again, I understand that there are certain communities where it's like, hey, everybody here is like 50 plus. I don't necessarily need them handstand walking, but when you program handstand walking, one, you tell people, or muscle ups, you communicate to the athlete that, hey, this is a standard. Like, if you could do this movement, this is the workout that you would do. And then there's the scaling side of things, which I say, okay, so if you do believe that everybody should be able to perform, these movements, everybody should be able to do a muscle up. That's an extreme statement, but let's take that for example. Then as the coaching staff, like, how do you scale that? And you should be able to obviously scale all of those advanced movements all the way down as far as necessary. And it's not that hard. Like, it's not, handstand walking. Okay. Can you get upside down and handstand hold? Like, great. No? Okay. Bear crawl, wall walk. There's the infinitely scalable argument is pretty hard to get around.
And to me, it might be difficult at first for an athlete to see why you care about these things. And again, without going on too many tangents, gonna go on real quick.
Yeah.
With a handstand walk, right? You have athletes who come into our door, beginners, and they're like, you're gonna make me go upside down? I go, yeah, if I know you can go upside down, I know you have good body awareness and you have strong shoulders.
Yeah.
While your athletes might not give two shits about being able to walk on their hands, they're going to appreciate having strong, healthy shoulders and appreciate, that body awareness. So when they go out in the winter and they slip on some ice and they catch themselves from falling, they're like, holy shit, I'm Superman. How did that happen? Well, it's because you constantly practice this discomfort or unfamiliarity of being upside down or doing skills. So much benefit there. So to me, yes, you might not ever get, if grandma comes to the gym to get her over on the rings and get her a ring muscle up, but you can teach her the skills of it. And those skills are going to pay off big time in her rest of her life in ways that may not apply to the muscle up, but apply to things that she cares about.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to our auxiliary/GPP focus. We're going to be doing some high rep overhead squats and thrusters. This actually came about as a conversation Hunter and I had about, what sticking points do athletes have in the open? What are some movements that can pop up and really stop an athlete dead in their tracks? And, commonly is that last workout of the open, which usually is high rep thruster and either burpees or pull-ups or both. And we see athletes who can squat a house, can press a house, but all of a sudden they're like, I can't do 20 unbroken thrusters at 95 pounds. Like, just watch you clean and jerk 315. How come you can't do 20 of those lighter ones? And it's because there's that mental barrier there that it's somehow so much harder or different. So rather than putting them smack dab in the middle of a Metcon, let's allow you to practice these with good form in mind and high rep in mind at weights that can be seen in Metcon so that you begin to build confidence here. And this is something we did with athletes on our regionals team years ago because we had a legless rope climb thruster workout, and the athletes who were potentially going to be doing it, I was concerned about the legless rope climbs. They were like, these thrusters are going to be really hard. So we're like, all right, let's flip that mindset because, and again, and at that level, we would think that the legless rope climb would be more of the sticking point than the thruster. So let's build confidence. So we're going to have athletes start at very reasonable weights with the goal of trying to ascend in weight slowly across the phase, but to be able to do those fast, smooth, unbroken at a pace that looks like a Metcon. And then that rest period allows athletes to adjust and then go back into it and go, all right, if I'm going to add 10 pounds to my barbell, what about this changes? And the answer is for Metcon weights, not a lot, other than needing the confidence to be able to move that barbell with speed and with good form. So to me, this is an excellent way to have an athlete who might be adverse to a workout like Fran, or every time overhead squats come up, they're like, cool, I'm doing 2 or 3 at a time. The ability to start with an empty barbell or start with 65 pounds and build confidence so that it becomes another movement in their tool bag versus this one single thing that always puts the brakes on their workout.
Beauty. Okay. Our in-WOD lifting focus. So usually once per week, depending on kind of the way that the open workouts, which we'll talk about in a little bit, fall. We're going to try to get some lifting under fatigue. So if you were with us last year, you remember doing some clean and jerk percentage work. And that also had some relatively simple movements, but it wasn't just a lifting session. It was row or burpees or bike or pull-ups, and then percentage work of your clean and jerk. We're bringing that back sort of. Instead of just focusing on the clean and jerk, we go back and forth between the snatch and the clean and jerk. We include a variety, whereas again, last year it was like, hey, you're going to do squat clean, split jerk, drop and reset. We've loosened that up a little bit to say like, hey, there's 5 cleans at X%. Athlete can choose to power clean, squat clean, whatever they prefer. And that's just to basically give athletes a little bit more flexibility in knowing what they can do, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then to, again, get comfortable with a heavy barbell under some fatigues. Again, we'll have plenty of nice, light, fast Metcons that don't let anybody stop for any reason, but we also want athletes to feel comfortable with that, moderate weight barbell, especially when it comes to the Olympic lifts.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add about the Olympic lifts other than the fact that we preach to our athletes all the time that it's one thing to have strength, it's another thing to have functional strength. We are now testing functional strength because as great as a 1 rep max is, there's very seldom in our sport where you're allowed all the time that you need and sit down comfortably on this bench, wait a few minutes, then go hit your single. It's like, nope, you're going to do burpees and thrusters and then you're going to get 30 seconds to try to 1 rep max. It's like, all right, well, shit, how would I know what to go with? Days like these in-WOD ollie sessions under fatigue are exactly how you figure that type of stuff out.
Yep.
Moving on to the hatchet lift, the focus for hatchet is going to be the deadlift. Competitor extra. Excuse me, I used hatchet, but that competitor extra, hatchet's what we call our classes here, is that higher rep deadlift and deadlifting in a style that is going to challenge you to move heavier barbells at faster speeds that could be seen in something like a quarterfinal. So we got a pretty beefy little test there for athletes to kind of put their head against and see where they're at, and then a chance to retest at the end of the phase. phase. But the idea here is we want to build confidence with something that gets tested quite often in our sport. We haven't necessarily seen a 1 rep max deadlift. We typically see, the 60 to 80% done for a ton of reps, and the ability to know how to move that barbell, when to break, how to brace, how to approach a big set of deadlifts. That year they threw 55 deadlifts straight up in that workout. Some athletes were like, I'm going to grip and rip and see what happens. And other athletes were stuck pulling singles from the jump. And, we saw athletes with varying strategies who were very, very fit in other things get completely stopped by this as nothing more than just not putting themselves up against this type of style, because, we love that muscular overload stimulus, and those deadlift ladders they like to do in the open where you have to go heavier and heavier and heavier really stop athletes. So what's the best way to build that? Put them up against it at a slighter percentage and build that confidence there so they know what they can and can't do with that barbell.
Yeah. So once a week in that competitor extra column, kind of that extra piece for athletes who want it, some deadlift work, and like you said, kind of that, moderate, that basically weights that we might expect to see that aren't just like, hey, find a 1 rep max, like you said, we need that functional strength. And then finally, just want to touch on really quickly the additional pieces. Sometime later on in the phase, athletes are going to see what we call Metcon resets, and this is a concept that we use for our individual competitors preparing for things like Wodapalooza, semifinals, CrossFit Games, and it worked really well. And it basically appears to be an interval. It's actually kind of a Metcon with rest at specific points. So we'll explain it a little bit more in kind of the programming document. But those Metcon resets have been really helpful for athletes to kind of, hey, this is the pace that I want to go when I am the athlete that I, envision myself being, is kind of I know that sounds a little bit intangible, but we'll explain it a little bit more, but it's been a really effective way of doing conditioning pieces kind of in an interval format for your athletes. And then the last, probably maybe not the most important thing, but a cool feature of phase 4 is that every Friday we're doing an open workout. The first and last Friday, we've got the Team Misfit specials. So we're not necessarily going to do a full test and retest week like we do in previous phases, because once a week we're doing an old open workout where athletes that can kind of effectively serve as a test, where athletes can do that workout, see how they stack up against themselves from previous years, and just kind of get in that mindset of, let's have some fun with this. Let's push ourselves a little bit more than we might normally in, a Tuesday affiliate class. But we've got a whole host of the open retest workouts that are going to be a good time for you guys to go through on Fridays.
Yeah, people really seem to love the retest model because, again, it proves them they're fit. And some of these tests you might not have done since they were originally written, 2017, 18, 19, whatever it was that year. And it might be nice to go back. Go back and see.
It won't be nice. I don't want to go back and see.
Go back and see what you did previously and being like, all right, holy hell, how did I ever get that score? I got to work really hard to make sure I do it this time. Yeah. Or, you know what, last time this came up, I only had muscle ups in sets of 2 and now I can do them in 5. Let's see what I got this time. So to me, it's a really fun way to kind of rally the community and just kind of get people in the headspace of hey, this event is coming up. We like to treat it a little bit more seriously than that. And as a chance for affiliates to kind of practice maybe the setup and the logistics of how do you run a class where maybe it's a 20-minute Metcon and normally you got to do 2 heats or you turn it into a partner workout. How do we execute on that? So it's a great practice ability for both the athletes and the coaches that run classes to kind of gear up for that open.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything else to add on phase 4 before we get to the
I just am stoked about what we picked for tests for the open test. Some of the ones I really don't want to do, which means I really need to do them. So thanks, Hunter.
We tried to, we picked them. I don't think we duplicated any years, did we? I don't
think so. No, I think we tried to go on from a different year.
Every one from a different year, try to prevent any movement redundancies, which is not hard, but you got to pay attention a little bit.
Of course.
Turns out Castro knows what he's doing when he writes a full, year of open workouts. So, no, it'll be a good time. Okay. Main topic of the day is raising rates at your affiliate. So raising that month-to-month membership fee. Again, we just did that. Our primary location in the original location in Portland. We just raised rates for the first time in a couple years, which we could probably talk about whether that's a good idea or not in probably more your opinion. And then our other location over in Wyndham, also raising rates a little bit as well. So, like, you want to kick us off?
Yeah,
Give us
sure.
like just general kind of like thoughts on the whole process and how and why, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So the raising of rates can be a delicate topic for affiliate owners. It can create a lot of anxiety around like, what is going to happen once I do this? Are my friends going to be mad at me? Am I meaning your members? Am I going to?
A lot of times they are your friends.
Of course they are.
That's
and again, we can get to that topic at some point in this discussion, because I think it's really a really valuable point. But are my members / friends going to be upset? Am I going to raise the rates and basically make it so I can't put food on my plate at home? Am I doing the wrong thing?
Everyone going to cancel and go to
exactly. Am I going to end up going to sell my gym in Wyndham is right next to Planet Fitness? Am I going to send everybody next door instead of into our doors? So kind of starting right off with the membership rate topic. Yes, you should increase your rates. What you decide for a schedule is your own personal choice, but little anecdotal evidence from me. When we first opened our doors over in Wyndham, our original rate was $129 a month, and we were $129 from 2014 to 2018. Or excuse me, 2019. We didn't raise the rates once in that whole span, and we went from $129 to $159, which is a $30 jump, which is $1 a day, which doesn't feel like a lot when you say it that way. But when you tell, a member,
I'll break that down and make that sound as nice as
exactly.
you like. But $30 a month,
only 30 pennies every 6 hours more. But it ended up being too much of a rate all at once, and there was a decent amount of backlash from it, and it did create a lot of anxiety within me as a business owner. And you instantly have like this henny penny, the sky is falling like moment. And I'm here to tell you that yes, we lost a couple of members, but at the end of the day, the bottom line in our gym increased, which allows us the opportunity to do many amazing things that have continued to help us be successful moving forward. So my one bit of advice there is, you can decide as a business owner what you think is the appropriate amount of increase and how often you do it. But take it from me, you probably don't want to wait 4 years before your first one, because you are going to create a situation where people do think that you're just, lining your pockets, when it's no, I'm trying to increase the value of what you get as a member, as well as making sure that as a business, we are set up for long-term success, because so many of your community members rely on your gym, not for the physical outlet alone, but the mental release that this 1 hour per day of getting away from their hectic lives provides them. And I want to be that, basically, like, I don't know how to say it here, but like, I want to be that like place they can go to, that oasis in their, what can be sometimes a bleak life in certain parts of the year. They can come there and make an hour about themselves. To me, that's so important that yes, you might be a little upset at me for raising the rates here in the small round, but if I'm open 15 years from now and you're still coming here and you've added 15 extra years to your life, you're not going to notice the 1 or 3% increase that you've seen kind of somewhat regularly.
It's a hell of a lot cheaper than medication.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to see, because as people in general are very bad at weighing the long-term consequences of a behavior. We're very good in the short term and being like, if I touch that hot stove, I'm gonna burn my hand. That sucks. But we are not very good at saying, all right, if I neglect my health by, drinking 1 soda a day and eating out for 1 meal, every day, that 17 years from now, I'm going to be spending $800 a month on insulin. Like that's a hard thing for people to realize. So, as the person who's trying to shepherd others towards health and longevity, it's up to me to figure out, all right, if I want to be able to say that I can do that for people, I need to be looking 3 or 4 steps ahead, not at the one single increase right now, but how is this gym going to continue to prosper as we get into 2025 and 2030 and beyond? Yeah.
And I think so, like, something that I would want listeners to extract out of that statement is that kind of lesson learned, like, now looking back, you probably would have more incrementally raised rates.
Yes, absolutely.
Rather than just hammering that one time. And that's tricky, because like you said, there's a lot of the predominantly, I would say, like social pressure that, if you're a CrossFit gym owner or coach, the odds that you are friends with at least some of the members of your gym is pretty high. And that's I would still say that benefit far outweighs the difficulty of, hey guys, I'm going to ask you to pay more to be a member here at this gym every month. I think that, it outweighs it. It's still a tough conversation to have, but I think the big takeaways is like, you got to have an idea of probably like, maybe what your ceiling is. Like in Portland, Maine, like we start charging,
400 a month.
400 a month. Like that's probably a bad decision. Right. But, so we have an idea of where our gym sits as far as the, pricing goes. And so you have to consider that. And then it's like, well, what is a reasonable schedule of, potentially, if I raise rates $5 a year for the next 5 years, that's a hell of a lot easier of a pill to swallow than one year. All of a sudden it's like, hey, we're asking for an additional $50 a month because we haven't accounted for the increases. We haven't accounted for inflation, the cost of living increases for our coaches. Turns out they're not going to coach here in exchange for memberships, much longer.
Sorry, those days are over, folks.
Yeah. Like, so you need to be looking far enough ahead to say, and understand that it's generally a lot easier. And if people know and expect, like every year, maybe, or every other year, the gym's rate increases a little bit, I think in today's day and age, with the amount of subscription-based services there are, it's like understandable. Yeah. Like we were talking with Drew about it, and he's just like, yeah, Netflix doesn't give a shit. They just send me an email one day and it's just like, your new month to month is $13.99. And you're just like, fuck, as you like turn on Netflix again. And it's
the hard part in that situation, the difference between what you just described in our gyms is that not everyone sees the increased value that Netflix is bringing.
Sure.
It's not as obvious that they're, adding more titles or different offerings. Sure. It's not as black and white as our affiliates. So like, when you do decide to increase rates, one of the big reasons why the Wyndham rate jumped up by so much is we made this expansion from a 1,800 square foot space to a 3,600 square feet. So basically doubled the training surface that people could be in and kind of training around. And at the same time, we bought additional equipment. So, it was a little easier for me as the business owner to justify the increase because of how much we invested in the business. So, as the affiliate owner, you can, again, decide how often to raise rates and how much to raise them by. But one thing we're going to probably talk about next here is you better be prepared to be able to explain to anyone who asks you, or your coaches for that matter, be able to explain to their members why the increase occurs. And yes, inflation does occur, a cause for some reason to increase your rates. But if you just go, inflation, and walk off, like, you're not going to have a very satisfied community, and you're going to have coaches who feel ill prepared to have that conversation with their members.
I think most people, again, will understand that at some point, you were going to pay more than you did when, they first started, or maybe even a couple of years ago. But, and you don't necessarily, I don't think I do want to talk about communicating this to members at some later on in the podcast. But I think the point is like there also needs to be some reason, basically, that you're raising rate. Like if you were going to ask for more money from someone, then you owe them some form of, improved service, or, whether it's an increase in the space, you've bought more equipment that allow, now people don't need to share stuff. Like, those are all valid reasons.
Absolutely.
But I think you would be, and again, you don't necessarily need to, I don't think that you need to, when you send the email that says we're raising rates, like, here's a list of 30 reasons why we're raising rates. I don't think that's a good play, but
not a good play. You
absolutely should arm yourself and your coaches with like, hey guys, we're going to raise rates. Let's talk about this. Like, these are the things that, in case you forgot, these are the things that we did, way back in January, or, in August of last year. Remember when we bought 5 new C2 bikes and 4 new rowers and stuff like that, and the barbells, whatever it is. Like, you should have kind of a, like, if a member comes up to you and is just like, hey, like, why are rates going up? Like, you need to be able to have that conversation, because like, that's a paying customer. They deserve to know, or they can at least ask the question, right? And you should have a good answer.
Yeah, to me, in addition to giving them the ammunition, as affiliate owners, most of the people treat this gym like it's their baby. This is their number one thing. So you feel very passionately, and you don't have any problem seeing why it would be a big deal to increase the rates. Like, this is an awesome place. I know you really like it here, but not everyone's going to have that same passion for your space that you do. So having these reasons makes sure that conversation goes a little bit smoother. And, I don't think you need an itemized list to hand to someone when they come by, but like, you should, as the affiliate owner, ahead of these rate increases, ask yourself, like, what have we done over the last, maybe it's 2 years, 18 months, 12 months, whatever you decide that interval is. What have we done to increase value into the gym? Expanding is a really obvious one. buying new equipment, refreshing old equipment that's worn out and beat up is a great way to do it. Coaching development, like reinvesting in your people is a really good way there. And something that we do at both of our facilities here is that sometimes members might not see the amount of equipment increase and be like, what's going on here? And it's that behind the scenes, we are investing in these people so they can give you a better hour of your day every single day. And we are constantly asking our coaches at both facilities, what are you doing to become a better coach? And we know we have, thankfully, a very passionate group of people that we're not like necessarily tap them on the shoulder every 2 minutes being like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We see them doing it. They're actively pursuing new certifications. They're actively pursuing seminars. They're getting together and communicating with one another about effective strategies. Our coaches group is super active with people kind of displaying, hey, this worked really good at my 5 a.m. You should try this at 5 p.m. tonight. Yeah. So like that type of stuff goes a long way, and it builds a culture where coaches feel like they're being respected as professionals, not just the 20-something-year-old who's getting a gym key so they can, coach a class here and there, and then I'll run your classes, but give me a gym membership so I can come work out. You want your members to realize the value they're getting and increasing their rates, but at the same time, you want your coaches to feel the same way, that you will care enough about them that you're going to take the money that comes in and reinvest in them and provide them with opportunities to develop their craft. Because something that's really important to me, and I'm sure is important to you, is creating careers for coaches. We talked about it earlier, like I'll work for a gym membership, like that irks me to no end. I want professional coaches because I want these businesses to succeed. And I know the coaches who do that want to create a career out of this thing, not something that's temporary. And we should be thinking about that as we're increasing our rates. How is this going to help our coaches become better coaches and increase the quality of our service? Yeah,
the coaching side of things is really important. It does, the increase in rates does two things, in my opinion. One, you're telling coaches, because hopefully also with that rate increase also is like an allocation for like, okay, we have a little bit more cash profit or free cash flow, whatever it is, that we can either reinvest in our coaches by sending them to paid seminars, maybe even pay for their, hotel if it's not local or something like that. Or it's, hey, you're doing really well. Your contributions have led to increased membership or membership retention. So here's a raise, that sort of thing. That's where that, ultimately that's where that money's going, right? Like you said at the beginning, it's hopefully not to just line your pockets. Everybody obviously wants to be able to make a little bit more money and be comfortable, but that's, predicated on the idea that you are improving the product that you're offering or the service that you're offering, and you're enabling the people who are delivering it to deliver it, right? So if you raise rates, there's also the expectation that you as the owner or head coach need to have that says like, hey guys, these people are paying more money. You want to know why? It's because I told them that you guys are the fucking bee's knees as coaches. You guys are really good coaches. You need to continue that. This is not you're just going to continue with the status quo. Like, you need to also be pushing yourself to improve as well. And I think that's one reason that the trading a membership for coaching hours is one of the worst possible fucking things you can do. A coach doesn't have any incentive to, improve the product of the class they're delivering. Like, you can't get more of a free membership than free, every month, unless you start
what's a
paid,
really easy way to increase your members, experience in class, to make sure the person that's delivering that class is very happy in their stead and is wanting to deliver a good class because they feel valued, feel respected by ownership, feel like they are a integral part of your team's contribution to this individual's life. So to me, the investment back in the coach, is a no-brainer. And that doesn't just come in, hey, here's a couple more dollars, on your time card or each week, but it's also like, hey, is there something that interests you that you think you could bring value to? I want you to go full speed ahead into that, because you might now be able to offer something that we couldn't offer before, which again makes your business more attractive to more customers and increases the ability to be like, hey, remember when we didn't have an engine class, a cardio-based class, or remember when we didn't have that gymnastics, bi-weekly class that allowed people to get better at the handstand, walking, and muscle ups? We now have the opportunity to do that because a coach seeked out the information, and now we have someone on staff that can deliver this unique offering that you can't find locally amongst other gyms. So, hey, here's another reason why our gym or our business might be ahead of the competition locally.
Yeah. Okay. How do you communicate this to members?
one thing you definitely don't want to do, take it from my personal experience, is have a town hall meeting where you're like, hey guys, what do you think about us increasing the rates? And then sit there silently and just get like tomatoes thrown at you, and then people like screaming and jeering and, setting up pitchforks and torches. Instead, it's a really easy strategy.
It was me. I was doing that. I was just trying to incite the crowd.
You write an email. You thank them for their continued support of your business. You explain to them what is happening, when it's happening, how much it's going to be, and say thank you for your service, and the email done. You don't want to open yourself up to a conversation here, because this is we're not bartering with a member. We're not saying, will you please give us a few more dollars? We are saying, this is our business. We want to make sure this business succeeds into the future. Here is what's happening, period. And for some people that don't necessarily feel comfortable or maybe aren't very good with confrontation, this might feel like a very challenging strategy to enact. But I promise you, if you go the other route and you try to have a town hall meeting about it, you're going to find that you're in a situation that's much more difficult to navigate than just being like, hey, I am doing this because I care about the future of this business. And hopefully everything that you do day in and day out around these people makes them believe that you actually are in that way, because I want to say one thing and do another, but I mean, that's really important.
Yeah. But I think to be fair, what we're saying is not like, hey, coaches, like owners, like avoid this at all costs. Like you're going to get roasted. It's if you create an environment where you just ask people in an unstructured way to provide feedback, people will inevitably, just the nature of human beings, will come up with things that are just like, oh, well, what about this? And then that triggers somebody. If there's 30 of them and there's one of you, how many more ideas are going to come out of the crowd and ask you what they are, or what the deal is with X, Y, and Z. So it is more just to alleviate the concern, like, because anybody who's ever received an email or something that says like your rate is increasing, your rent is going up, your lease is going up, whatever. It's like, fuck, it's frustrating. And if given the opportunity to immediately respond, you might. Allowing people to kind of just like sit with it. You say, hey, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me, in person, and then you can address that one-on-one with that person. But yeah, I think you when you do like kind of that town hall sort of thing, you facilitate an us versus them scenario.
Absolutely.
And even if, most members or customers aren't going to be like, oh, let's fucking get him. But you are probably going to feel like that. And you have to remember, like, kind of put yourself in each other's shoes. That's a really, really difficult place to kind of to put yourself in. So one thing that we will be doing at the end of this year is like a survey. Yep. And I think that's an easy way to facilitate feedback from like constructive feedback from folks. But yeah, like, hey guys, town hall meeting, we're going to increase the rates. What do you think? Like, ooh, yeah, like, ouch. Like you're setting yourself up for the hurt locker in that situation.
And I think the survey is a great way because, again, for a lot of those surveys, they're going to be anonymous, so someone's not worried that like, oh, so-and-so thinks I think this place sucks and it's going to be expensive. But it's a great way to get honest feedback from members and, thinking about like what is going to drive us as a community. Getting feedback and hearing certain things echoed by multiple people. Because you're right. If you're in the torch and pitchfork at your town hall, if some person says it, it's once that's kind of put out into the universe, other people are going to feel very comfortable latching on there. And they might not necessarily feel as passionately as the first person who put that out there. So use the survey as a way to kind of gauge how members are feeling. And then don't just throw that information away. Be like, are there trends in this that are standing out to us as like areas we could improve? Like if you say your gym is awesome, but everyone says something about the bathrooms, well, shit, get a cleaning person to take care of that bathroom so that you don't push someone out the door because your restrooms are, dirty. Or if someone feels like, the welcome area, your entryway isn't welcoming. All right. And you hear that from more than one person, find ways to mitigate those problems because those surveys are very, very valuable. It's just a more effective way to get consistent communicate, or more effective way to get what I'd say is honest communication versus the torches and pitchforks. And at the end of the day, as an affiliate owner, we want that feedback because if we're chasing better, we have to know what our clientele wants and be able to take, all the things that are thrown at us and kind of sift them out to the things that actually feel like they're going to move the needle and aren't just, one particular person who's unhappy about something. Yeah.
And I think like the survey is good because it also like, you think what you think your gym. And like for me, like I'm typing up the questions and I'm trying to figure out the correct way to, get the information that I want, like
without leading them,
without like, basically just trying to say, hey, tell us what you think about this in like as much like as you want to give us, but in such a way that's helpful. And the survey is important, but like, man, I'm like kind of terrified at the result, like to look at the results because like I don't have a problem walking across the gym and being like, yeah, this is one of the best gyms on the planet. Like, prove me wrong. And I'll like stare somebody straight in the eyes until they prove me wrong. But like, if the survey comes and it's just like, my overall satisfaction with the coaching is a 5. And I'm like, that's the average across, like, so the average gym goer of the 70 results or people who actually responded to the survey, the average is a 5. And I'm like, well, fuck.
Well, it helps you eliminate your own bias because again, for a lot of the coaches and affiliate owners, this is your baby. You think they're like, if you ask a mother what's wrong with their kid, they're not gonna be like, oh, there's these 17 things wrong with him. They're gonna be like, he's perfect. Yeah, he's perfect. So to get honest answers, this type of feedback is a much more effective way than soliciting to an entire group. And that's not to say that you can't at your whiteboard announcements just say, hey guys, I sent out an email. If you have any questions, come talk to me about it. I think that's a valuable thing. And you can even say like, hey, we're doing this because we believe in these 3 things. And then move on from it. Just don't turn the whiteboard brief into a town hall meeting. Was my one note there in that, because when I taught the first class after sending our notice to all our members that we were increasing the rates, I said, hey, there's a couple of things that are really important to me. 1, this gym exists when your kids can come to my gym. And then 2, I want to make sure that I provide professional opportunities for my coaches because I want the best coaches on staff possible, not just, again, some 20 or 30-something-year-old who's trying to work out and get a gym key. I want the best coaches possible. This is the step to get to that. If you have any questions about anything else we're doing or want to know more about the gym, don't be afraid to pull me aside one-on-one and leave it at that.
Yeah. And be able to have that one-on-one conversation, and understand that, the person you're staring at is also a person. You got to turn yourself around and be like, if I was a customer and I was having this conversation, like, what would it look like? Try to understand kind of their side of the story as well. The last thing I want to say on this is don't apologize. And this is something that we like. Might sound a little bit crass, but as soon as the email that goes out or the messaging is, hey guys, I'm really sorry to do this, but you immediately put yourself in a position of weakness, not to say that you want to be in a position of power, but it basically says like, I really hate to do this. And it just gives people a reason to be like, well, then why are you like, I don't want to give up $5 more. And if you hate this, like, why are you asking for it? It's like, no, like, if you genuinely believe that your service is, and given all of the other circumstances, including the current economic climate, whatever that happens to be for you in your area, like, don't apologize for that. As long as you are doing the right thing and continuing to provide the best possible service that you can and can honestly tell yourself that, you have nothing to apologize for. You can be empathetic and be understanding of people who would rather have the $10 a month in their pocket instead of in the gyms, but that's life. Like, that happens. The CrossFit classes are a premium service, and it's and understandably so. For anybody who's listening to this, we don't probably have to convince you, but like, it is what it is, and apologizing for that, it just honestly, it makes it more difficult for members too. It's kind of like, it's like breaking up with somebody. It's like, oh, like, hey, like, I don't know if we should be, it's like, it's like half and half, and then you confuse the other person, and it's like, well, what does this mean? It's like, no, like, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. Don't be apologetic about it, and, continue to move on. And I think that's just like the best, that is the easiest way for everybody, not just for you.
I don't have much to add to that. I think that's a great way to kind of end that topic, is if you are starting to apologize, like you said, you create yourself more problems than just being honest and upfront, and people will appreciate your candor and your empathy and like understanding the situation. But if they truly are on team, whatever your gym is, they're going to realize really quickly that you are doing this with their health and their longevity in mind, not the inconvenience adding a few more dollars to their monthly membership. Yeah. So I think you said that perfectly.
Sweet. Any final thoughts on that topic at all? Or I think that wrapped her up.
Again, I don't want to tell you how much to do it by or when to do it by, but if you want long-term success for your business, it's something you're going to have to do, and you're going to have to do somewhat regularly over your future. So, building a culture around it is a great place to start. And I think, if you aren't going to do it this year because it's too last minute, be thinking about the value you can bring to your community next year, and make a plan ahead of time so it doesn't feel like you're doing this last minute before the end of the year.
Yeah. I think waiting, like, okay, I'm going to wait until it's almost too late and then drop the hammer is like, I think as anybody who's like, again, subscription service, I would way rather just like know that consistently, like, okay, I can expect a small increase. Like, that's just how the fucking world works. Like that's just how it works. But yeah, I think my final thought was the last thing I said, so I won't belabor that, but if you're doing the right thing with your coaches, with your facility, then you should have no reason to apologize or feel bad about increasing your membership rates within reason, to the point where like you are able to put that money back into the community to continue to make it grow. If you don't do anything with the extra cash and it just sits around or it just lines your pockets, then like, I don't feel bad for you when the torches and pitchforks come your way after the announcement. But
I like that. Let's end on that.
All right, sweet. Okay, good topic. If you guys have any suggestions on topics, we're always available. The best place to get at us for those sorts of things, you can hit the Team Misfit Gyms, the @Team Misfit Gyms Instagram. I'm @HunterShould on Instagram. You are at MF Sherb still, right? Yep. And then phase 4 kicks off on January 3rd. Always a good idea to get kind of at least subscribe so that you can see the week or two prior to that, whether it's in SugarWOD with that free 14-day trial, or you're going on to teammisfit.com to ask for that sample program. It's always a good idea to have an idea of what that's going to look like, a little bit before the phase starts. And with the last week of the phase being kind of that gap between Christmas and New Year's, never a bad idea to hop on just a little bit early so that you can start kind of head first with phase 4 on January 3rd. Awesome. We did it. Thanks for listening, guys. Let us know what you want to hear next, and we'll catch you next time.